Hi, everybody. Here's another video. Um, I got a couple of phone calls and a message regarding how much does it cost to retire in Greece? That's a tough question, actually, because it's so dependent on what your lifestyle is. But I have two people from the New England area, from New England, and they're Greek, so it's going to be easier for you. And then I have a friend who's in, Washington State, and he's a real American. So it's going to be different, obviously, for everyone. But I did get some notes just to figure out how much it cost. And the question was really, can you live in Greece for, his question was about almost $2,000. The answer is definitely yes. I'll go through that. But I was also asked about, from somebody, is it really true that you can live for $1,000? Um, that's tough, but I'll go into that as well if it's possible. Um, Basically, because I have to look at myself and what my expenses are. I've got those down as well. But before I even start, um, before you, because some of you were thinking, if I had no rent, kind of living like me, because I don't have any rent. But, to just come to move to Greece, buy a house, and decide to live there, I wouldn't do it. I mean, yes, the two of you, I understand you've been to Greece a couple of times. You understand it a little bit better. But nevertheless, I would just rent somewhere. That's what my suggestion is going to be for this, for retiring in Greece. Just rent. You don't know what you're going to like. There's the summer life and winter life are much different depending on you are. You might love an island, in the summer with all that and the busy nightlife, but it's dead in the winter. Most of them, unless you're in Crete or Rhodes, but most of them are dead. There's just nothing to do unless you like that. That's what I'm trying to say that. But I split it down into basically three types of categories of what you can look at as a foreigner. Um, and if you're looking at kind of like expats, by the way, why do Americans go abroad? They call themselves expats, but everybody else calls them an immigrant. We like to call ourselves expats. We don't like to be immigrants. A nation full of immigrants doesn't like calling itself immigrants, so we call them expats. But if you look at village life and the positives pro, obviously it's going to be a lot cheaper, living in a village than it would be living in a city of, let's say, 80,000 people to 100,000 people, or living in Athens and Thessaloniki, which are very cosmopolitan subways. You have the consulates, the hotels, and the hospitals, and you have all the amenities, which is positive on one hand, but it's also more expensive on the second hand. Now, I come from a city called Katerini, which is about 80,000 people, and it's also more expensive than, let's say, inner mainland Greece, that's 80 kilometers or 100 kilometers from the Aegean. Obviously, it's going to be cheaper there. So let me just break it down to you. I'll try to keep this video short. Um, if you're looking at housing, for example, let's start with village life. Okay, um, village life. If you're paying 300, you can get a small house. You really can. You can get like a two-bedroom living room kitchen, and it depends on, again, there's villages and there's villages. I mean, village life that's still relatively, like, 40 minutes from Thessaloniki, or half an hour from Katerini. The bus only goes there, transportation 4 to 5 times a day, so it's limited. Hardly anybody speaks English in these small little towns. I'm trying to give you all the negatives and the positives beyond the money. But those are 300. Now, if you're saying, what if I went an hour from there, Adam? Like, Metsovo, Yanina villages up in the mountains, or in the Peloponnese somewhere, up in really rural villages. I bet you could find an apartment for 150. I really do. But again, you're living in a very rural area. The village, you need a car, so you have extra costs, but it might be what you're looking for, and depending on your pocket, 150, you'll still have a house. Then I put together like what electrical costs were. Everybody just thinks of the housing. Now, regardless where you're going to be, if you're living in a midtown, like I am, and you're looking at two-bedroom living room kitchen, um, you're looking like around 450, 500, 550, some, and it depends. Do you want them furnished or non-furnished and all that kind of stuff? But, if you're getting 550, 600 around Caterini area, you're expecting like two-bedroom, living room, kitchen, in relatively good shape. Now in Athens or in Thessaloniki for, 550, 600, you're only going to get like, I don't know, 350 square feet, 400, it could be a nice apartment, but it's going to be a small apartment in a big city. Now, if you're looking at like what I have, like, almost 1,000 square feet, it's like 800, with balconies. In Athens in that area, you're looking at, probably 850, 1,000 euros a month. And, there's no roof on that. If you want to live in Thessaloniki in Panorama in a villa with a swimming pool, you might pay up to $4,000 or $5,000. So it all depends. But I'm just trying to break it down within like logical um, price range. So if you're writing this down, like I said, if you think about this, like a midtown city like mine, I think a two-bedroom place you can get like around 550. But anyway, regardless then of costs that are different in Greece, um, let's say like electricity is really expensive everywhere in Europe, even more so in Greece. Um, if you're running your air conditioning 124 hours a day, like a real American, then your bill, will be 200, 300 euros a month in the summer. And obviously lower in the winter, but then you have heating, you have heating oil and whatever you're using, so that'll compensate. But I think that, no matter where you're living, by using your, air conditioning in the summer and heating in the oil, from my experience, I've lived there now. In the last 7 months, I was in Greece 5 of the last 7 months. And this is the eighth month, so it'll be actually, 3 months in Germany, 5 months in Greece. But I've been able to see, my costs and do a pretty accurate, what you would use in those months that you would be alone. I think 150 is on the high end, but let's just keep it on the 150. Then you have internet, telephone. That's going to run you, depending on your goals. I'm going on the high end, like 39 a month for, high speed um, internet for you at home. Telephone, all that's really cheap in Greece. You can get like for 28 gigabytes for like €5 sometimes. But anyway, but you still add another 40 to that. Now groceries. I'm going to go into eating out later. How you can live. I'm just going through the basics of what you would need. Groceries are a lot cheaper in Greece than they are in America. Germany also has pretty cheap food, believe it or not. Germany has some of the cheapest food in Europe. Their supermarkets are so competitive, the local farms here, but for various reasons, they're really cheap. But regardless, in Greece, it's even cheaper than it is. I see the prices in the USA for fresh vegetables and, anything, even chicken or meat. I should make a video on those price differences. But I don't think I spend more than 100 a month, 150 tops. Um, and when you're saying what, well, I eat out all the time. I'll explain that. But you can figure out how much you would bet. I talked to families before I made this one family. I didn't talk to families, but a family with 2 kids, they're saying they need like 100 a week, so which is 400 a month, and they eat at home. And that includes toilet paper. It includes cleaning materials, everything. Toothpaste and all that kind of stuff. So you can figure that out yourself. But I think on the safe side for one person, and I'll explain to you why you eat out a lot. But it's like I said, I don't think it's more than 150 a month, and I smoke, so it's like twice a pack, um, 2 3 packs a week. They're only €4 in Europe, but like I said, I eat out when you're saying, well, what do you go shopping? Shaving stuff and like I said, toiletries. But beyond that, watermelon and feta cheese, carapuzzi. You gotta love that. Coffee, um, bread, cheese. Make a sandwich, some ham and stuff like that. So they're still expensive. Um, Now eating out, um, you're in Greece. That's going to be one of the good parts of Greece. Like I said, I'm not even going. I'm just going through the costs. I'm not going through the advantages. The advantages, but food is fantastic in Greece. Now, what I do is I have not just me, but everywhere in Greece, there are these things they're called magiria, and it's like homemade food. Most times it's just for takeout. They open up at like 10 in the morning. They shut down at like 2:33 in the afternoon. And they'll cook like, maybe 7, 8, depending on how big the place is, 10, 12, 14 different stuff. And it could be, like, fish with potatoes. It could be gritharaki, that Greek noodle, rice with beef chunks. It could be, stuffed peppers that I love, or, stuffed zucchini. Now, that kind of a thing will cost you with a salad. You ready for this? Like stuffed peppers, which is one of my favorites, 550. Um, 6 tops at another place, and you get 4 stuffed peppers for that. That's a lot. I only eat twice a day. I don't eat breakfast. Us Greeks don't eat breakfast. Most of us don't. It's coffee and a cigarette is a Greek breakfast. But I only eat twice a day, so right there, it's only 556. Even if I did that 30 days a month, it's still only 150 euros, and it is almost 30 days a month. And I go there so often that he usually drops every single time. Like so once I ordered shrimps with spaghetti, they were, I think, 9 euros. He gave it to me for 8, just because he sees me there almost all the time. So my costs top are like 150. And it depends on your lifestyle. I'll get into the lifestyle in the end, but I'm just looking at regular costs. So you can add up. In my case, even with going out, like I said, it depends. Do you want to go for Western style eating steaks and drinking beer, and it's still cheaper than the U.S. I can guarantee you that. But you might be up, if you're doing that 3 times a week, and going to the beach, and you're probably running 30. I'm sorry, 30 to 40 euros each time. So you'd probably be up to be like 500, 600 euros a month, if you're doing that. So it all depends on your lifestyle. Let me just give you like a small difference before I get to the prices on lifestyle. Is like, I'll go down to a beach bar, and you can go to a beach bar with swimming pools where they got like really good techno music, and it looks like like the Seychelles with these gardens, and it's fantastic. But you can pay for a table on the swimming pool. In fact, it's mandatory. It's 250 euros for a table of 4, and you get a bottle of champagne. That's the minimum. Like, that's just for sitting there. That champagne is included. It's 250 bucks. Everything else is extra. You can get that too. But I go to a place, like I said, you can cost you nothing. You can bring your own umbrella, right? And your own towel. Grab a sandwich. Agiro, just give you an example, and hang out at the beach. That would cost you 350, 380 to 4 tops. Under 5 euros, including a drink. If you just take it with you. But I go to a beach bar, cool music. I like to hang out and stuff like that. But that cost me 450. So I can go a day with less than 10 euros and just eat out. I'm sorry, that's just like, I guess I had lunch. I'll go to the beach in the evening, have a coffee or something to drink. Even if I have a cocktail there, just so you can see. I think they're, margaritas are like 750 or 8 euros. And I'll have a club sandwich. And, my bill is 14 euros. With a cocktail, a club sandwich, I'll give them $1 tip, 15. I spent 5 on lunch, and that was an active day. I was out all day. I spent $20. You see what I'm trying to say? So that's just an average day for me. That's what I do. I'm a beach bum. I enjoy going to the beach. A lot of my friends are there, just hang out. I go for a walk. But anyway, and then you look at transportation is the last thing. If you're looking at a car, I think the cost of a car, just having a car, insurance is much cheaper in Greece, by the way, like a lot cheaper. Let's see, I think it's like, if you're just insuring yourself, I'm sorry, the other car, um, you can do it by the month and just cancel the second month, if you're not driving anywhere, but it's like 39, 49 a month to insure. Even if you want full coverage on your own car, it's like maybe 109, 110. But regardless, just having a car, with oil changes, with registration, with the insurance, with everything that goes with it. And sometimes you're going to repair it. I looked into it a little bit, but 150 a month is at least. You might go 3-4 months with nothing, but all of a sudden your muffler breaks and you need 400, 500 to $600. So I added 150 for that, and that's it. You would think I'm finished, but I'm not really finished. But there's another addition there, and that's medical insurance. You guys got to think about that. Now, in any kind of an emergency, as long as you're registered in Greece, you will get, as a register of Greece. I know you guys already know the rules about getting the visas, but anyway, you get what's called an AMKA, AMKA. It's a card, and you're covered. That's it. You're automatically covered for any emergency, for any kind of thing. Now, if you're just going in for diagnostics because your shoulder hurts or whatever, um, you will go through that system. It will take longer. You won't get an appointment the next day. You do have free choice, by the way. You can choose any doctors you want, specialists. You can drive somewhere else. You just got to call them up, get an appointment, um, and the system will pay for it. So that anything you hear in America, don't worry. National health care and private provider, and you can choose. You can choose everywhere in Europe. It's just a waiting time if there's a negative in that system. Now, for you guys in America who are used to paying big bucks, you can go, outside of the system and not wait. If it's not you have to wait for doctor's appointments. Let me just make that specifically clear. It's maybe a procedure that might be required that takes time, and that's really what we have to look at. So if you don't want to wait, for example, your shoulder hurts and you say, you got to go for an MRI, you're not going to pay, but you got to wait, 3 weeks. 5 weeks, and you're like, man, I don't want to wait 5 weeks with a shoulder pain. You can go to like a small private clinic, and you can get the diagnostics, any kind of stuff done there. I'm not joking. It's like so ridiculously cheap. It's like 150, 200. Let's say you needed something serious, like a complete, CAT scan, MRI from head to toe, 550, 600. So even out-of-pocket payments for top-notch service is really cheap. And you can get private health insurance. I know a couple of people that have it. They're British. I think they pay like 39 euros a month, and it covers 80% of the private costs if you went outside the national healthcare system. But you do have to add, I did add that 39, 40 euros for you. So you do have medical costs. Medicine itself, I don't care what you're paying in America, it's like probably 1/10 the price here. They're subsidized by the government. I have a friend who, like me, takes metformin who, in the U.S. His monthly payment is like around 80. Mine is 5. He pays 80 a month. I pay 5 a month. And in Greece, it's about the same. I think it was like a little bit more, actually, like 550 or 6. But altogether, if you look, here are the price everybody has been waiting for. Drum roll. So if you're living in a very rural village, I'm sorry, small village, like my mother's village. I don't know if my cousin's watching this, and you wanted like a small bedroom, a 2-bedroom apartment. I think he's renting one for 300 now. And if you look at the electric bill, internet, and all that, you're up to about 850. But now you're not having a big life. You are eating out all the time. I mean, you're already, it's a beautiful village overlooking the ocean. And if that's what you're looking for, you can actually survive well with eating out and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you took that 850 and went to a real rural village, somewhere in, Zaharahoria, somewhere, or the Peloponnese, or I don't know where else, you could probably live, a little above average, but, you're not saving money. I can guarantee you that, and you're not living the large life, going out, whiskeys and cocktails and on vacations. I mean, that's survival. By the way, that's the minimum wage in Greece, just so you can see. So if you're making that minimum wage in the city where there are jobs and you're working on minimum wage in Greece, life is not easy. But if you're making 850 and you're retired and you're living in a village with 300 people, you're probably surviving. By the way, a very important factor before I mention this, like 75, depending on which statistic you believe, it's between 75 to 85% of all Greek retirees don't pay rent. Very high percentage of homeowners in Greece, and many times they will have even a second home. It's like almost 35 to 40% have a second home, your vacation home or your village home. So Greece, that's why their retirement benefits are lower as well. Now, if you were to live in a city like my city, I'm sorry, not my city, Thessaloniki. No, I'm sorry, my city. If you were to live in my city, you're probably gonna, need 1250, like 400 euros more. If you're making 1250 net to 1400 net, um, I think you would probably be living quite well as one person in a nice apartment, like a town like mine. It doesn't have to be mine, but like 7 kilometers. What is this? Less than 5 miles, 4.5 miles from the ocean, and you could live good. Now to live like that in a big city, if you like, like I said, English, priority. You're going to integrate quicker. You might integrate quickly in other cities with 80 or 100,000 people, or 200,000 people, as well. But nevertheless, the others are larger. Um, the last point, so that would cost you about, in a big city, I think what you were looking at, $2,000. It's 1,800 euros. Yeah, you should be able to live even in a big city with $2,000. That's 1,850 euros. I think a lot of Greeks friends that are watching are like, "What are you kidding, Adam?" Families survive on that. So yeah, you'll definitely be able to live on that. For the two couples, you guys have been to Greece. I think I've helped enough. Your costs are relative, even cheaper because there's two of you. And I'll give you my costs. You ready for this? Okay, like I said, I don't pay rent. My entire cost a month, and this is with me eating out all the time, like I said, like 400 a month. I am not joking, people. I spend like 400 to 500 just going out, buy friends coffee, to spend almost 20 euros a day. I spend on just eating out and hanging out. Not every single day. Sometimes I stay home, but on the average, if I stay home 2 days and spend, I don't know, 10 euros, I'll spend maybe in 2 days 40 euros each day. So it all depends. But really, people, I add it all up. Let me not go into detail, but it's 880 euros, including Kinohrista, because I live in an apartment building and all the costs and the air conditioning. That's $1,000. So if you own your own home, yeah, and I live good. Like, I'm not trying to save money. I don't usually think, but like I said, I am not a big, whiskey drinking, cocktail, champagne, and the best beach bars. I like chilled out, hanging out beach bars. Some of you have seen videos. Reggae, chill out, relax. I like to eat, tsipuro meze, which is a way of style in Greece. By the way, you can eat tsipuro meze lunch, dinner at any time under 10 euros. I guarantee you that, and really good food. It's a small meal. So you can do that. Now, if you want all the time, I don't know, steaks with whiskey and stuff like that, it's going to run you a lot more. I don't eat that way. And that's not my lifestyle. But, even now, anything else beyond that, like medical, I'm covered anyway under the German system and the Greek system. So, if you have your own home, people see what kind of lifestyle I have. And yeah, it's 880, on the average, euros, maybe make it 900, make it 1,000, but it's, I don't think it's more than that. So that's it. I hope I've been able to help, but whatever you do, like I said, just think about big city life, mid city life, and all that kind of stuff. Look around, see what's on the ocean. You have the average 300 sunny days. Think about that. That alone is where we have the seasons just the other way around. We have a small, cold, sometimes even snowy winter with long spring and long fall and a short, hot summer. So you have all that advantages, the good food, crime rate, especially violent crime, is almost non-existent. Only in big cities, but in smaller villages and stuff like that. In fact, Greece has one of the lowest non-violent crime rates in Europe. You do have a lot of petty crime, like pickpockets, burglaries, breaking into cars, a lot of white collar crime too, like fraud cases, people calling you up, trying to make money, ripping you off. There's a lot of that, but it's way, way safer than it is in the USA. Please Google crime rate USA comparison to Greece, and it's pretty embarrassing for the United States. How much more dangerous. So you can feel safe, like in the town I'm in, walking around at 2 o'clock at night. And yeah, that's about it. I hope this has helped, and I hope you make it to Greece, man, because it's always good to have a buddy there. Bye.